Hey guys, and welcome to another Schematics update. This time we want to talk about City Skylines Parklife, a new expansion pack, and for that we invited Silv. Hey dude.
Hey man.
For listeners out there who have no idea who you are, could you please introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Silvarret. I make YouTube videos of pretty much any creative game that I like, and at the moment that happens to be primarily Planet Coaster, City Skylines, and hopefully more Parkitect again as well. So yeah, I'm sitting here because I kind of have a seat at the table of City Skylines, I suppose.
Yes, you do. And I'm AdfoTV. You can find my stuff on YouTube and Twitter and on Twitch, hopefully soon again.
And I'm Blind, and I stream games at twitch.tv/BlindIRL, and you can find me at stupidskull.com.
Great, so the DLC was just announced, and I quickly set up a doc with everything we know so far. And Blind, would you please be so kind and start with the first topic?
First topic we have here is the Parks and Recreation Edition, which is a park area tool, which allows you to create park districts wherever there is empty land. New city services like park maintenance boosts happiness and effectiveness and helps level up parks. So essentially, I think what they're saying there is you'll get like a zoning tool. So it allows you to build and zone your own parks. And this is something that I personally, as someone who's a fan of the management side of City Skylines, I'm very excited about this. Like anything related to expanding how parks worked from the original base game is a massive welcome change for me.
I can only agree with that, honestly. I think the way that parks worked before this is just really minimalistic. Just kind of because they have to be there, they just shoehorned it into the game. But they barely really function, and it's really hard to fit them into your city because they're basically just these little ploppable square things right now that you can place anywhere, but you can't actually make an actual park. And if you do, even if you do decide to make one with paths and trees, it's at the very least not a functional one. Like people cannot recognize it as a park, and it doesn't really do anything for your city either. So the fact that they're adding this, I think, especially for a gameplay perspective, really helps out the game.
I agree.
The next topic is called Brick by Brick. At this point, I'm still not entirely sure whether I'm following their way to actually list all of these different changes, but this one lists a bunch of ways in which we can now customize our city with new buildings and assets, and they're saying that it includes sightseeing bus lines, which is definitely a new thing, because so far buses are just primarily a mode of transport, exclusively, really. And the very idea of having like a sightseeing bus is really cool, but hasn't been in the game so far. You can also get new service buildings, new unique buildings, where they mention amusement parks, nature reserves, city parks, and zoos. And what at this point I am pretty much thinking of is that you'll be able to like plop these into your park or your city and have some sort of modular control over what things are going to look like, because I'm pretty sure that a building would be, for instance, a single ride or a single roller coaster in a theme park that you're building, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then finally there's the new monument called the Castle of Lord Chirpwick. Sounds pretty cool, but I don't think we have any pictures of that yet, so that's just something to wait for.
Honestly, I'm really excited about the sightseeing bus lines, because right now buses are, as Sylv said, just a mode of transport. There's really nothing else to them. Anything that pushes forward things like tourism in City Skylines as a management game is interesting to me, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do exactly, how they're going to function, and what menu they're going to be in, whatnot like that. So also a way to get buses up in the middle of nowhere and actually have people use them will be cool.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it certainly adds another layer to the tourist side of the game.
Yes.
Honestly, I think that the whole tourism thing so far has been one of the least well-developed parts of the game.
Oh, for sure.
It's just kind of like zone it a little bit, get some random hotels or whatever, but it's not actually very well thought out, and it doesn't function really well, so it's good that they're actually paying some attention to that now.
Alright, so the next point is freeway free for all, which is building can be placed to pathways in park districts, not just to roads.
By their wording, it looks like just now pathways will probably just have like little cells next to them, so you can just place ploppable buildings next to them, or alternatively build housing next to them even, I would assume.
I'm guessing so, yeah.
I hope so, but the construction of the sentence is place buildings next to paths in the park districts.
Yeah.
And I hope that's going to be universal.
Interesting.
And props can be placed anywhere inside the park areas. So the props, I think that's pretty normal so far, but that you can place buildings on pathways is new, at least in the non-modded version.
It's another one of these things that's been a really popular modded thing that they're adding into the normal game now, even if it's just for parks, I suppose. It's still a very neat touch, especially for the vanilla players.
The next thing we have is recesses between buildings, correct? Transform those empty spaces between your buildings into vibrant parks and gardens. I don't know what this means, but what I'm hoping it is It's just like when you zone buildings. Perhaps now we can zone parks in individual cells.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe, if I'm imagining this correctly, in between buildings, because there's always going to be like, you know, a couple unused cells if you're building like nicely laid out buildings, you're always going to end up with a little bit of space.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a different zoning tool, so you can just zone in a park or something, and then trees will just grow there. That's kind of how I'm reading that. I don't know if I'm misinterpreting that. I'm sure we'll find out later.
That's actually what I wanted to mention, because that's something that's been irking me for a while, is if you have a completely like straight grid city, your buildings will fill up all the spaces. It's totally fine. But as soon as you get a city with a very curvy layout, especially like European kind of layouts, you always get these empty places between the buildings. And this is especially jarring when you have a European city in City Skylines, because, you know, on a grid it's fine, all the buildings connect. But as soon as you go to an actual natural European city layout, which is messy and curvy, you get all these empty spaces between the buildings, and you notice the flat walls between the buildings, etc., which just doesn't look that good and kind of breaks the idea of the whole city center being this dense European sort of district. So I really hope that you'll be able to fill in the places between those buildings. But in either case, I think it's a really cool idea. So the next one is going to be me again, and it's called A Walk in the Park. I'm still not entirely sure whether I get all of these names. Like Freeway, Free for All didn't even have anything to do with the freeway. But in any case, the Walk in the Park thing has to do with customizing routes and setting ticket prices for walking and sightseeing tours and other tourism enhancements. And I feel like at this point, they're just kind of dropping some things, and by doing that, implying a bunch of other things which are left more ambiguous, because it basically just implies that we'll have walking and sightseeing tours, and this will be a way to get extra money, and there will be some way in which we can organize this, but that's all quite vague, I believe.
My assumption of how this is going to work in game is it's for nature reserves or camping sites, because they did mention something about campsites. So basically being able to set up areas that people will go hiking or adventuring through the forests, or alternatively maybe like a downtown area that you specifically want people in, or through a port, or an area that you would deem as a sightseeing area. My assumption is you'll lay down like pathways for pedestrians, and then maybe even like the bus route tool, select where you want the tourist route to go, and then people will just start at the beginning and they'll walk along it and they'll pay a fee to get into it. Just probably very similar to how bus tools work, except instead of on the bus lanes, I would assume it would be on the pathways.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it works. There's a screenshot on Paradox Plaza that shows exactly that.
I'm a genius.
Wow.
I didn't look at that screenshot.
Sure.
I seriously didn't.
Alright, so the next one is Policies Please, which adds 3 new city policies and 8 new park policies to deal with recreational hazards like animal ethics and fireworks. So, fireworks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're adding fireworks.
Yeah.
It's like one of those other things, like where does this come from? Like it's just such a subtle drop. They're not saying, we'll get fireworks in the game. It's just all of a sudden, yeah, you'll now get policies to deal with those fireworks.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what fireworks? Huh? What's happening?
Exactly.
Well, clearly, kids go to the stores and they buy firecrackers and they throw them into car windows while they're moving.
That's pretty realistic, at least.
Yeah.
It's horrific. It happens. I'm really curious to see what this is. My assumption, animal ethics is going to be related to zoos, right? And fireworks is going to probably be related to the theme parks. I guarantee you fireworks will make noise, and people who live next door are going to be horrible and complain about it. So there's probably going to be noise barriers, because the last big update added in, I think it was it Green Cities, or maybe it was the one before? I can't remember.
Green Cities, yeah.
They added in the noise changes for how noise works in the game and noise pollution works. I'd be willing to bet that things like fireworks could cause fires or noise, and that will cause unrest around the area.
That seems really likely, actually.
Yeah.
But it would be pretty cool, because I would love to see some actual fireworks in the game and see how they tackle that graphically.
I want to know what that'll look like. It's probably just going to be a pre-done animation, like, you know, maybe similar to the stadiums where they have several different pre-animated games. Like, you can actually zoom in and watch them. It's probably something pretty similar to that, I would assume.
Oh, definitely. The question is what modders will make out of that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, like, I think that's what I'm very excited for. Like we were talking about before we started recording this, as far as mods goes, is assuming we get ploppable theme parks and stuff, modders can now take those and make functional new rides and for the theme parks along with the zoos. I just hope that the management for the new theme parks and the zoos have enough depth that they're like little mini games unto themselves, and just a little, not hugely complicated, but more complicated than previous editions we've had, because all of the other small editions like the concerts and the stadiums were all mini DLCs. It's going to be really interesting to see a bigger DLC based on those concepts of, here's a little mini game that you can play within your city to to change a certain district.
Definitely.
Cool. And the next thing that we have here are Parklife Plus, whatever that is, adds a radio. I'm confused by what this is.
Okay, so let me explain it real quick. There are two versions of this DLC.
Oh, interesting.
The City Skylines Parklife and City Skylines Parklife Plus. Parklife Plus includes a new radio station.
Okay.
That Parklife itself doesn't.
Interesting.
I like that, but then again, it's also something that's been lifted from a mod, because there's long been a very popular music mod with many like song lists that you can add to it to play in the game.
Yep.
But it's a neat idea though, especially for the people who don't get mods.
As somebody who doesn't use the radios at all, great.
Yeah.
I listened to SimCity 4 soundtrack. I'm good to go. I don't need any of their silly music.
I think the music in City Skylines is good, but they didn't beat the SimCity music.
Oh, I agree.
That's not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it has to be. It's insanely good.
So to just draw a line under the whole radio topic, Sylv, could you please tell us what kind of music we can expect from the new radio?
I'm gonna butcher some American words here.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It'll add 16 new songs, 6 instrumental ones, and 10 with original vocals. They're bringing out the big boys in this one in 4 subgenres. They all look like the same genre to me as a European.
Yeah, same.
I know I'm being horribly offensive in saying this. I'm sorry, America. I know that country music can be great. It's not all Toby Keith. I know that. But yeah, this Appalachian folk, there's bluegrass / honky tonky. There's Nashville modern country. And there is unplugged country. And I don't know any of the differences between those, but I'm sure it'll sound good.
I do, and I know I don't need it. Bluegrass is all right.
You know what I do want to throw out here, which I know you guys aren't going to get, but my first thought when I looked at this update was the Blur album called Parklife, which is pretty much the only thing that I've ever associated with Parklife. It's a super famous album, by the way. It's also an awesome album. It's an album by the British band called Blur. Lead singer later created the Gorillaz, so it's pretty well-known stuff.
Okay.
There's just this album called Parklife, and that has just become synonymous with the word Parklife, so I was just kind of like, whoa, what kind of name is this for a game when I first saw this? But I don't know if that was the inspiration, but it might have been though, because that was like an album about Hyde Park in London. And anyway, I am digressing horribly. That was just a little sidestep.
Now we've got to talk about the free stuff.
No. Hold on.
Holding on.
We need to talk about the pricing first.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the free stuff that comes along with the DLC. Because I checked out the Steam page and the Paradox Plaza site. And on both sides, the Parklife standard version is $14.99, currently 10% off as a special promotion as a pre-order. The Parklife Plus version is listed for $17.99.
I'm looking at the Canadian Steam page right now, and full price and the base Parklife is $17.49, which is currently on sale for $15.74, and the Parklife Plus is $20.49. That's actually kind of steep for a DLC.
Yeah, I think it's pretty expensive in general.
Just looking at like what this is adding, this looks a lot more comprehensive gameplay wise than the last one, which was Green Cities. Green Cities was interesting, but it wasn't really what I wanted from City Skylines. This looks like it's actually changing the game quite considerably.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
I'm a lot more excited about this update than I was for Green Cities. Green Cities, like, I kind of bounced off of, but this one I'm very excited for. So I don't really know if there's too much to cover there. The pricing seems a little odd. I think that Paradox will probably clarify that.
Oh yeah, probably.
We've talked enough about the stuff that you're going to be paying for. What is everybody else getting for free? So we get a new tourism panel, noise pollution reducing trees. There are certain trees that you can build that will reduce noise. So actually, if you look at the screenshot on the Steam page, which has a picture of this theme park, there's a bunch of new looking trees around it. It's probably those trees.
I think so, yeah.
Tourist models. So there, I guess, will be tourist-looking guests. So people that stop moving in the middle of the road to take pictures.
Yeah.
People wearing fanny packs and hats.
New modding features. We're not sure what those are. And camera mode upgrade, including sub-mesh modeling and an improved camera system so users can control the camera with scripts. Then there's this comment over here, which is new dirt and brick paths look pretty rad. And slightly different graphics, and the new trees are nice. So something that I want to mention, Unity's updated a lot since Cities come out.
Yeah.
Recent changes with games moving over to the new version of Unity are things like the lighting update in Parkitect is now possible. Originally, when City Skylines first launched, it was running on Unity, just a very, very heavily modified version of Unity. So my assumption is, with the game looking slightly different, perhaps they've updated to a newer version of Unity, and that will increase quality of things like lighting, shaders, etc. That's my assumption of what people are spotting on the various Discords for City Skylines.
Oh, by the way, I just noticed this one GIF on the Steam page that shows that the building to pathway connections is only working with the Park District enabled. because there are buildings on a pathway that show the no road connection icon over them, and as soon as they paint the park district over it, they seem to be connected. So correction or clarification for earlier mentioned feature.
Well, then I'll just make my whole city a park.
Right.
I think one thing that we were talking about before we started the episode as well is, and this is something that has been bugging me a little bit since the game came out, it's a really car-centric game, which is kind of surprising coming from a European team. It's just, I've always kind of been bugged by the fact that you can only place buildings alongside roads, when many cities have pedestrian districts or roads with parallel paths where the houses actually just hook up to the path. So it's really cool to have this functionality finally.
Right, so the last thing to do to fulfill our informational duty is to say you can pre-order the upcoming DLC now with 10% discount on Steam and on the Paradox Plaza, and at least for the Paradox Plaza version it comes with wallpapers, forum avatars and forum icon. I'm not sure about the Steam version, but yep, and it will be available on May 24th. So I think we covered it all.
Yeah, seems pretty much like it. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, we've had just about everything.
Cool. So first of all, Silv, thanks for joining.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you on as always. And for our listeners and viewers, thanks for listening and viewing. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, let us know in the comment section under this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.